Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, November 13th, my apologies, meeting of the Finance, Assessment, and Taxation Committee to discuss the proposed budget. Topics for discussion, we're going to discuss Local Law C of 2025. This is a local law amending Section 42236 of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to the salaries of elective officers. Local Law D of 2025, local law amending the curbside waste collection fee. We also have additional information on Ordinance 30-10125. This is a bond authorization for police vehicles and equipment replacement. Ordinance 56-10125 for recreation maintenance equipment, and Resolution 123-10125. This is the homestead, non-homestead base proportions that we have to pass out of committee as well. And then in general, we're discussing our final discussion on budget changes, as the intention is to vote on our budget November 17th, this upcoming Monday. Okay. We do allow for public comment, as we do in all meetings. Do we have any public comment signed up for this evening? Okay. Doesn't look like we have any. All right. So first, let's do the more straightforward item, why don't we? So let's go to our recreation. You all have on your desks a memo or an email in regards to the recreation equipment request. And this is, again, Ordinance 56-10125, an ordinance authorizing certain purchases by the City of Albany, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000, and authorizing the lease financing or the issuance of $100,000 serial bonds of said city to pay the cost thereof, recreation maintenance equipment. So we discussed this with the Recreation Department when they were here. We did have some additional requests for information in regards to the particular bonding. What would that entail, essentially? So you'll see a breakdown here. A few things included as part of those equipment needs. First is a goalpost replacement at Bleecker Stadium. Cost estimate $29,730.68. Then a PA system replacement at Bleecker Stadium, cost estimate $30,000. Also a field groomer replacement, Toro Sand Pro 3200. Cost estimate $28,740.36. A master riding mower replacement of cost estimate $14,000. And the breakdown of all of that gets us to a total of $102,000. Ultimately, and that is why they saw a $100,000 bond, so that they could update the recreation equipment and replacements as mentioned. Any questions, comments on this particular ordinance and associated email support that we have? Councilmember Hoey. Ooh, thank you. First time I haven't done that. All right, also note, attendees present from the committee are Councilmember Baller and Councilmember Keegan, Councilmember Farrell, and myself, Councilmember Frederick. We are also joined by other Councilmember Zamer and Councilmember Hoey. From our city, we have our City Clerk, Shaniqua Jackson, our Legislative Aide, Carly Johnson, our Legislative Director, Brian Jimenez. And we have our Research Council, Robert Wenner. At this time, Councilmember Hoey.
I just wanted to remind you about the...
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any questions again on this ordinance? Okay.
No, but I'm happy to make a motion if you'd like.
Wonderful, perfect. Councilmember Farrell.
I move that ordinance 56-10125 go through committee with a positive recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, we have a positive recommendation motion from Councilmember Farrell, a second from Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 56-10125 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation. Okay. Do we have any additional information on the police vehicles and equipment replacements? Is anyone there? Carly? Do we have any information on the police vehicles and equipment replacements? Okay. So this one was one that we didn't pass out of committee, but we were looking for additional information in regards to the vehicle replacements. If we don't have that yet, we are going to hold for this evening. The other comment to note that we discussed at caucus last night was that there's a interest in the body to have a deeper conversation on overall capital and overall debt that we have, a deeper conversation above the conversation that we had with the city treasurer previously within the budget season. And so what we are actually going to do is not vote on any bonds on Monday so that we can have an appropriate conversation there and then pass the bonds within the month of December. I will say we should pass the bonds in the month of December, because if not, you're going to have to reauthorize those bonds. You're going to have to do a new body. So we definitely need to prioritize passing the bonds in December. Also, they obviously have their timelines of their own, so important from the administration's perspective as well to pass in December. Any questions? Okay. For the record, we are also joined by President Pro Tem Kelly Kimbrough, Councilmember Keegan.
Do we just want to note again that, because I don't think this made it into the budget intent memo either, is the issue of the police car bonds coming out of their budgeted line item and being moved into a bond, because we end up paying the debt longer than the life of the vehicle. And I think we had built in something like 1.2 million as of last year, and suddenly that line is gone. So that's an issue. And then the other reason why we held on those bonds is because the department had indicated to us that several vehicles were destroyed this year, and that the insurance payments, rather than going back to the department to replace those vehicles, was placed into the general fund. And so we wanted adjustments to be made to allow for the department to immediately move on the funds that went to the general fund. So in my opinion, we should have an amended document, because there was something like 600,000 in insurance funds that they should have available to them to immediately order vehicle replacements now. That should come out of the bond that was proposed. We really should only be bonding, I think, for 4 cars instead of 10. So that's, I don't want to vote on that until we get answers and all of that gets straightened out.
And we will hold, and thank you for the reminder, so we'll add a police section to our budget intent memo.
Sorry, I read it and it didn't pop into my brain until we started talking about that.
Okay, any additional comments, questions? Okay. All right, so at this time, I want to discuss first Local Law C of 2025. Again, a local law amending Section 42-236, annual salaries elected officers of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to the salaries of elective officers. It sounded like from a prior meeting we had, there was majority support on the committee for the raises of elective officers. I know we held on this until today to see potentially where we would offset the reduction to property tax. I will say that in conversation with the administration, they are providing that to us as soon as possible. We do not have those yet. It has been common in prior years to also have this situation occur pre-budget, but they have assured that we should not be going and line iteming on our own to try to find funds to cut the property tax decrease that we're proposing, and that they will come with a few options for us, hopefully as soon as tomorrow morning. So that being said, what we have here is a local law looking to increase the salaries of elective officers that has not been done, I believe, in 8 years. Work done, put together by Councilmember Keegan and others to really look at comparables in other cities and do nominal raises to make sure that these officers are getting appropriate pay for the for service and the duty that they do, and also, really looking collectively to make sure that, for example, individuals on the Common Council can really get diverse representation on the council, because the salary is something that, as a part-time resource, is at a good amount to be able to deal with cost of living. So do we have any questions or comments on local law C? Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Chair. I know we're also holding it because we needed to add our leadership stipends to the bill, and I just wasn't sure if that's been done. It's not in the document I have in front of me. So I know that, and I do also have some other concerns, but I'll hold those for now.
Yeah, so for background on that, leadership does get currently a stipend, President Pro Tem and Majority Leader, that allows for an additional bump in salary. That higher amount, being $28,000, is reflected in the budget book for those titles. It's really up to us as a committee if we want to also have the local law reflect those two titles of Majority Leader and President Pro Tem at $28,000, or if we want to keep a general line for the member of the Common Council being $25,000 and continue down the additional stipend path that they have now. I'm curious from the maybe legal perspective, Mr. Wenner, if you think that we have to go one way or the other?
I don't have any thoughts offhand on it. I would defer to the committee on that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Keegan.
Isn't the stipend authorized under different legislation?
I don't know of it being authorized anywhere other than the budget. But it has to be, because it's in our, I don't know if the stipend is authorized anywhere, but the actual roles are authorized somewhere. But I don't know that there's a stipend that is part of that. I mean, the other option is, if we wanted to move forward with this, because it's also kind of cleaning things up, we could move forward with this, and because it's all part of the budget, the actual salaries would be in place, and we could amend this at a future time. Like, we could actually look into it a bit more and amend it at a future time, because it's not, we wouldn't actually be changing the salaries or anything like that and violating the overall rules of not changing the salaries. You know what I mean? It would just be kind of cleaning up whether or not it needed to happen.
I think one of the comments made 2 days ago, or 3 days ago when we met, 2 days ago, was in relation to if we were to put $28,000 here for those two positions. The only, I guess, other response to that is that there wouldn't be that flexibility in the stipend if at a later point in time between election years you wanted to consider something different.
It's also potential that one could consider that, yeah, I mean, I think that the idea of a stipend is not necessarily the same thing as, it's an addition for additional work that you're doing, so I don't know that it necessarily needs to be articulated out. I think we could, but it's also, I mean, I wouldn't go into detail with like which position, but like personally, I'm like, there is a committee chair position that's a lot more work than others that I would consider potential to have a stipend too. Like there would be that. So anyway.
Councilmember Keegan.
Alternately, I think one of the things that we discussed being an easy fix to this would be to amend the Common Council department salaries overall. And instead of having the 13 council members, you'd have 15, and then you'd have a separate line item for stipend that accounts for those two stipends. And I think that resolves the entire issue.
Yeah, that would make sense. Like, and just call it leadership stipend.
I would prefer that route of adjusting the budget book, the budget itself, to that as opposed to the local law.
Only thing that I would say with it is I'm not sure of what that would do in terms of like taxes or anything. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't, and that, I'm just not sure what a stipend does versus, like, if that would be an issue on the HR side. Again, I mean, this might be something that we might need to actually do more research into to actually figure it out, and I think we'd be fine passing this as is and changing it in the future, because we have existed with $9,850 as our salaries on the books for a pretty long time as aldermen, and that has not been accurate, and we've all been fine.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Hoey.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up about the taxes, but what I'm more curious about, and Bobby's not here, but pension. Does the stipend money go towards the pension? And I don't know if you guys know that, the current leadership, does that get included?
I mean, right now it's considered our salary. Like, it's definitely considered a salary thing, and it's not articulated as a stipend on as far as I know. It could be, but I will also say, I mean, I'm already in the state pension system, but sadly, this does not count in addition to my, like, just because you're doing 2 jobs in the state pension system doesn't mean they add them together. So, yeah, it's silly, but.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Okay. So I think this is a, healthy point brought up around pension, taxes. If we adjust the budget book, are we making other issues down the line? So then going back, the other 2 options here are focusing on the local law, keeping as is, doing more research. Later on, the new body, the new council, can amend and adjust as appropriate. Or alternatively, putting it in now, 2 lines, President Pro Tem and Majority Leader, 28,000, and passing as amended. Councilmember Ballerin.
I think whatever's easiest, to be honest with you. If it's just putting them in now, or if it's just define them into the book. That doesn't address my bigger concern, which is to vote on this now without having had the discussion of what we're looking to reduce from the administration. So that's, to be honest with you, I feel not having those numbers makes it difficult to vote on this specific bill right now, for me.
So,
And I wish they were here, and I wish we had those numbers to go back and forth, but unfortunately they're not.
Brian?
I would just like to make a quick note that it might be a little bit harder administratively to handle or to work with stipends as opposed to having the salaries be included whole. I could imagine, I know with, at least with our boards and commissions, we have to individually submit stipend payments for each one of them every single month. It might have to be something along those lines as well. That it might take up a lot of work from payroll.
Robert.
And it might go through the audit processes raised by City Clerk Jackson.
I just wanted to note that I had stepped out to check E-code and can confirm that there's nothing in there as far as guidance on either side of this. So I think it is probably just whatever is administratively easier is the best way to proceed if the committee doesn't have a preference.
And with the added context of administrative processes for stipend, my recommendation then would be to just add 2 lines to this, amend the local law to mention the President Pro Tem Majority Leader at 28,000. Councilmember Hoey.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just asked our attorney, is there something that in the law that prevents us from doing raises besides every 4 or 8 years? Can it be like any year?
I'm going to defer to Councilmember Keegan, who looked at this in detail. I believe it's every 4 years, right?
So we can only update our salaries or vote on a salary increase when it's the end of the legislative session, because essentially you're proposing a salary increase that is perhaps not going to be entitled to you because you're in an election year. So if we don't do the salary increases now, our next opportunity would not be until 2029. And we have not done a salary increase since 2017.
And I agree, is there something in the, is there a local law? Where is that?
I believe it's how it's structured in the charter.
It's the charter.
And I believe historically, we had been doing them inappropriately in violation of the charter. And that was corrected at some point before my time on the council.
Okay.
And so if we're gonna follow the law, now would be the time to do it. The salary increases, if you look at it being an 8-year time span, it's less than 2% per year. You know, and originally what I was looking at was closer to a 2 to 3% COLA adjustment across the board. But given our fiscal constraints, and the discussions that were coming back, because I was working on this, you know, spring and summer, we capped it at that 13.7%. If
No,
that
we-
makes any sense to you. I said, just go for a straight 25, and that's fine.
I want to look into the charter stuff, but I wanted to find out with the COLA, cost of living COLA, would that have to be put into the charter to allow that?
I would hesitate, so we used to do salary increases when I think it was the AFSCME contract was settled. So whatever they would get, the council would get. And we stopped doing that. I can't tell you historically when, I didn't go that far. And I would hesitate to tie us to a COLA because it pigeonholes you into an area. Like even this time around, it was a really difficult decision because we just don't necessarily have the revenue to cover all of our expenses. And it's really hard to give yourself a raise when you're looking at having to make cuts other places, right? At the same time, I do think we all work very hard, and to go for 12 years without a salary increase is a lot to ask of people, especially those folks on this body for whom this salary is part of how they make their bills. So I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, sort of it does, and I'm not saying hold off. My concern is that you get elected and we have 2 or 3 years of 10% cost of, inflation. Nobody can predict what the future is going to be. I grew up in the 70s, and I remember there was 1 year it was 18%, the inflation rate. And, if that goes on, and you're kind of limiting, the people, if you're doing a job, you're doing a job. And, maybe we should think about common council members forming a union, but that's another story for another day.
I mean, I think ideally we'd be looking at remembering to do this and adjusting 8 to 10% every 4 years, and that would mean that there's not such a dramatic increase this time around. I wasn't on the council the last time that we had the opportunity to do this, so, but we either do it now or we don't do it till 2029. we are compensated better than some of the other municipalities, you know, but we also do significantly more work than places like Schenectady and Troy, in terms of the population that we represent, you know, and when you look at the Big Four, we're really out of whack when you compare us to the county legislature that really, from a constituent size-wise, I mean, we cover about 7,000, between 6,500 and 7,000. They are about 7,500 to 8,500. So it's not a substantial differentiation between our constituency sizes. Their salaries are probably 35% more than what we make, and I think they're raising them again. So, you know.
Do you know the number that the count, is it 35,000 that they're getting?
I think it was 34 or 35, but I think because they're in the same boat that we are. So if they're gonna do a raise, it would be this cycle, or whatever
Okay.
their next cycle is, their next session would be, so, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So going back, my recommendation to this local law will be to amend and add 2 lines reflecting a $28,000 salary. I want to take a pulse on the committee. Would you be supportive of that? Maybe yes. Yes, yes. Okay. Carly, could we get that amendment put in printed so that we can vote on this? Thank you. We'll hold on right now until we can see that in writing and then vote on this in committee. Okay. Okay, so that takes us now to local law D of 2025. Local law amending the curbside waste collection fee. We've had many discussions on this local law throughout the budget season. Ultimately leading us to now, where we looked at overall consolidated impact to our residents, and at least a majority of this body, this committee, agreed that we have to do something in this budget to address the affordability. So what a majority has agreed to is to pursue a property tax rate decrease from 3% to approximately 2%. And with that would allow for the curbside waste collection fee to remain as written, which is doubling the fee for all unit types. Ultimately, the local law is written to offset the cost of curbside collection expenditures. It has not been doing that for 6 years. And so we have to, although the impact is significant, right size and offset the expenditures with this increase to revenue. So discussions on this local law. Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Cheryl. As you've been following the committee meetings, you know I've had a lot of issues with this. And I was hoping we could bring it down to a third of the increase, or at least a sixth, or cut down a third at it. You know, but that's not something we've been able to compromise on, with the compromise being that we would lower the tax levy a third instead of the trash fee a third, to still save residents an overall dollar amount on their bills. Because at the end of the day, whether it's your trash fee or the taxes, it's a penny here, a dime there. Well, there's no more pennies anymore, so now it's a nickel here and a dime there. So, you know, as long as we are saving residences some of the increases, then I can accept that. So I'm okay with moving forward with the trash fee based on the compromise that was made within the committee members of lowering the tax levy by a third of the increase that was proposed by the mayor's office.
Additional comments on this local law? Councilman, I wasn't sure if you're, all right. Any additional comments? Councilmember Zamer.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be, just from my own understanding, so the 1% decrease, that those line item cuts, that's what you were referring to before. The administration said they will find rather than us going through?
Correct. Yes, they're going, hopefully by tomorrow morning, around tomorrow morning, they'll be sending a couple options of adjustments to make based on where, it's their budget, they know their budget better than us, where the offset can be. It's $630,000 is the amount that we're looking for to go from 3% to 2%.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hoey.
Thank you. I think this is good because when we see the fee, we know what it's being used for. When you increase a tax, you don't know exactly, what it is. We know that the landfill is going to be closing, and that the cost of collecting garbage is definitely going to go up. And I think to hold off now and then get hit with, 5 times the amount that we're proposing would be a real shock to people in 2 years. So I think this is the right way to go. Hopefully it'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Farrell.
I think I've said this so many times, so I apologize to everybody, but as it's something that we will be voting on, I will just reiterate that I don't love any fees or increases in cost to our constituency. We also have to pay for the things that we have. Trash pickup is an important part of our city. It was added for very important reasons in our city, and made a big difference in terms of the way the city looks when we opened the dump initially. The fees, the cost of garbage will be going up dramatically as our landfill closes, and which is happening imminently. And so it is something that I know it's been articulated many times. Ideally, this would have been gradually raising. We hope that it will be gradually raised in the future because these costs will continue to go up, especially after our landfill closes. And the cost for garbage disposal in New York State across the board will go up dramatically in about 6 or 7 years when all of the landfills are closed in New York. So when that happens, I'm not sure what these fees will be, but they will be significantly higher, and they will probably still be a small fraction of what somebody will be paying with private hauling outside of the city. We don't love it, but I encourage everybody that is listening, for like the 3 people, please do reusable things and do everything you can. Reuse is best, and glass and all of that good stuff, because the less we can put in the garbage, and the less we have to be careful with recycling too, that a lot of that ends up in the garbage, the better.
Thank you. And I just want to note that in prior conversation, we did discuss potential adjustments to this local law, being potential cap language or something of sort. Ultimately, the outcome of that was that would need to go to referendum. So therefore, we are not putting that in the local law, but we do include language in regards to more gradual increases year over year in our budget intent memo, and we also include language around incentive-based strategies for waste reduction. So if you haven't read that yet, I encourage those to look at that section and let us know if you have any changes. With that, any other discussion on local law D? Is there a motion? Councilmember Farrow.
I move that we move local law C of 2020, D of 2025 through the committee with a positive recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Local law D had a positive motion from Councilmember Farrell, a second from Councilmember Keegan. Unanimous consent of the committee here. With that, local law D passes out of committee. Okay, we're gonna go back to local law C. You all now have in front of you an amended version of this. So we now have the president pro temp listed at 28, and the majority leader listed at 28,000 salary. Do we need to have as amended at the top? Or no? The only thing I think missing here, team, is the as amended at the top, but we can add that for Monday's meeting. So ultimately, this will be the local law with as amended for the title of local law C. With that, is there a motion? Yeah, of course. Comment from Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Chair. So I will be voting present on this, just because not because I don't believe these individuals or these positions don't deserve an increase in the living wage. I mean, any group shouldn't go 12 years with an increase in their salaries. No group should do that. Whether you're an elected official, whether you're anyone, that's just not right. So it's not a situation where I don't agree with the work that was done to try to get to a number that was reached, but I have some concerns with the fact that we don't have the numbers from the administration of where they are going to share the burden of reducing the expense, and not having that makes it difficult for us to determine what would we agree with and what would we disagree with and what would we have different viewpoints on. And no, I'm a believer in shared burden, and I think this limits us in what options we have without those conversations before us. So that's why I'm going to vote present, not because I don't think these positions that have not had increases in 12 years, or might not have an increase in 12 years if we didn't support this, don't deserve an increase. So I just want to make sure that's clear. I just think it makes it harder for us to have these conversations about what the administration is willing to cut versus what we may consider is willing to cut. And again, I wish they were here to have those conversations, but we are what we are. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ballerin. Any additional comments? Okay. If not, is there a motion? Councilmember Keegan.
I make a motion to move local law C of 2025 out of committee with a positive recommendation.
Thank you. We have a
As
motion.
amended.
Motion from Councilmember Keegan. We have a second from Councilmember Farrell. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, local law C of 2025, as amended, passes out of the committee with a positive recommendation, 3 yes, 1 present. Okay, so now we are at resolution 123-101-25R. That is a,
Just to confirm, I think you said as amended on that?
as amended,
It's pending amendment, just because we're advancing it out of committee.
pending amendment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just wanted to note that so that the designation on the sheet was correct.
Thank
And
you.
it might be something that we might need to amend it at that meeting and then pass it at the following meeting, just to emotionally prepare people for it, because with the local law I believe we have to amend them at a meeting, and then it has to age, and then we vote on it.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the clarification there. So we'll move to Resolution 123-101-25R. This is a resolution of the Common Council establishing the locally adjusted base proportions of the homestead and non-homestead classes for property tax purposes pursuant to Article 19 of the Real Property Tax Law. Okay. So we've had discussions on this as well. This sets the homestead base proportion and the non-homestead base proportion, ultimately putting 55% on the homestead base proportion and 44% on the non-homestead. This does ultimately shift more of the burden to the non-homestead population, as their amount of ownership in the city is less than was here. However, it does allow us to ultimately establish the property tax rates. Any questions on this resolution? Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Chair. This is one time tonight where I'm going to say thank you to the administration, because I think they gave us some really good information, and I think they showed some really good data that makes it much more clearer what we're voting for and how it affects our residents. So I do appreciate that, and I just wanted to make that part of the record.
Thank you, Councilmember Ballerin. Other questions, comments? Okay, I'm not hearing none. If not, is there a motion? Not hearing any. That was a double negative. Councilmember Farrell.
I move that we move, I'm sorry, maybe I should have. Resolution 123-10125R out of the committee with a positive recommendation.
Thank you. We have a positive recommendation motion from Councilmember Farrell. We have a second from Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor? Aye. Resolution 123-10125R moves out of committee with a positive recommendation. Can we get printed, please, the ordinance for the budget with the amendments? Obviously, it's not populated fully yet, but can we have that for discussion? Carly or Brian? Thank you. All right, so at this time, we're going to go into the budget intent memo. You have this on your desk as well. This is Resolution 132-11225R. A resolution of the Common Council outlining its actions and expressing its findings and intent concerning the City of Albany 2026 budget as proposed in Ordinance 27-10125. That is the one we're printing currently. So walking us through the budget intent memo, everyone received this in their email this week. Number of people, I want to give a thank you to Councilmember Keegan, Councilmember Conti, Councilmember Nane for submitting certain language into this. Also want to give a big thank you to Brian, who expertly helped craft this and pulled in relevant information from prior years as well. Walking you through the budget. So where we start is, I'm just going to skip first page here. First topic, affordability of our city, property tax levy and revenue streams. Mention that we have a 3% increase and also a curbside collection fee doubling. Understanding the necessity for the curbside waste collection fee increase, however, acknowledging that the combined increase of cost to our residents does place significant burden. As part of our deliberations in Finance and Assessment and Taxation Committee, we determined that we would reduce the property tax levy increase from 3% to 2% and seek appropriate expenditure reductions to maintain city services while prioritizing affordability for our residents. Comments on this paragraph. First, second paragraph of page 2. Okay. We will move down to our next section, which is the curbside waste collection fee. Here we again acknowledge the increase of 100%, doubling the cost. We also recognize the necessity of the increase, the impending closure of the Wrap Road landfill, and ultimately the anticipated increase to expenditures in future years as well. However, we emphasize that doubling in 1 year does place a unique undue burden on residents, particularly those who are cost restricted. Therefore, we strongly encourage the administration to implement more gradual future increases to the curbside collection fee on a more regular basis to make the adjustments more manageable. Then we have a paragraph on incentive-based strategies for waste reduction, and that ultimately we're looking for in future budgets creative ways to offset some of the curbside collection expenses with ultimately incentives to reduce, because the only way we really reduce cost to curbside collection is a reduction in waste itself. Questions on this section? Okay. Next, we have a section called Safety in Our Communities. This section acknowledges some of the efforts done to increase positions within the within the police department, does acknowledge the vacancy that they have, and ultimately the strain it places on the existing officers. We obviously recognize public safety concerns that we have for our residents, and express things like, we have a mention there about reaching at-risk youth, providing a safe space for all of them to congregate, kind of an odes to the youth support hub that is forthcoming. We also then ask for strategies to pursue effective recruitment of residents to the police force, and also closely collaborate with the Community Police Review Board. And then we mention, obviously, the Violence Prevention Task Force in there, so a general section here on overall safety. Questions on this section or comments? Councilmember Hoey.
Yeah, it's a sore point with me on the Community Police Review Board that the mayor's had 2 openings for almost 2 years, and now she has a 3rd opening. And to me, it's frustrating that I can't tell you how many meetings I've had with the mayor and said that we need to get people appointed, and it's just like a refusal, or in my mind, a dereliction of duty, that we appoint 5 members, the mayor appoints 4, and I think going forward, I will propose legislation that after a year, if a position isn't filled, then the council might have to step in. But I'd love to have seen stronger language here that, we need to keep it staffed. When somebody leaves, you replace them. So I'll stop at that. Thank you.
We currently have, just to acknowledge, last sentence, 3rd paragraph is in vain, that we renew our call to the mayor's office to secure appointments to the Community Police Review Board to fill their vacancies so that the important work can continue. We can be stronger on that language. We can add a couple more sentences, and also if you have any proposed language, please definitely feel free to submit in, but we can bolster that up a bit. Councilmember Farrell.
I completely agree with everything you're saying, Tom. I don't know that the budget intent resolution is necessarily, I think it's good to mention it, but as it's not really a budget item, it's not something we necessarily have to put in here, but.
Yeah, well, just to answer that, we do give stipends to members on the board, so it is.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a tenuous connection at best. Like, I would, true, okay. But like, I mean, I think it's something that is well worth being very strong about. It just, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can kind of meet in the middle here, add a sentence or 2 for this particular section. Maybe not mention the legislation that's forthcoming, but maybe add a sentence or 2 for that. Okay. Next section, if no further questions, comments. Okay. Office of the City Clerk, as discussed during budget season, we talked about additional requests to replace the front desk of the City Clerk's office, which compared to the current budget they have for that item for that particular furniture line, they would need an additional 3,000. So we are including that as part of our budget amendments. We also mention the responsibility of the city clerk to cover the animal control license fees, and we recommend that the administration explore ways for the Albany Police Department's Animal Control Division to reimburse the city clerk's office for these licenses in the new year. Questions on that? Okay. Then we go to the Office of the Common Council. Here, we talk about future years, looking at expanded staff to effectively carry out the responsibilities of the Common Council. Also expressing our interest to rejoin the National League of Cities, which was brought up as part of this budget cycle, that can help provide guidance, resources to local legislators. Questions on the Common Council paragraph? Okay. Commission on Disabilities. Commission on Disabilities. I will have Councilmember Keegan.
All right, so this is one of the sections that I drafted. It just notes that because the legislation wasn't passed until after the announcement of the budget, we are making adjustments to the council's line items, specifically from one category, and creating a line item for that commission in order to ensure that council staff are able to facilitate accommodation needs. We just note that the legislation included a fiscal impact of $5,000, and that, you know, hopefully, as that board becomes established, we develop a greater understanding of what the fiscal implications will be in order to support their work.
Questions, comments on that section? Okay. Thank you. We'll move to addressing equity and inclusivity in our playgrounds. Councilmember Keegan.
So I believe I first drafted language for this section in 2022. We included some, or added some stronger language, including referring back to actions that have been taken historically in order to help the city facilitate this process. It goes over the types of equipment and surfacing that is necessary. We also noted and commended the Department of General Services. For anybody who wasn't here for recreation or the DGS meeting, essentially what's happening is that recreation is taking the lead on building playground equipment. To date, they have yet to build a playground with surfacing and equipment that is fully accessible for all of the children in the city, and that includes Washington Park. However, DGS does come in after the fact, and they're the ones who put in the picnic tables and the benches, and they have actually been putting in accessible equipment as well as pathways to get to those pieces of equipment. So we just noted that they're providing, in my opinion, a better example of how to do this than recreation is. So those were some of the updates we made this year. And we specifically refer back to the design standards memo that I sent to recreation in 2023.
Thank you, Councilmember Keegan. Any questions, comments? Okay. Then we go to recreation. We remain keeping it here as a continuation items at request of Councilmember Johnson, a request for a additional South End Community Center, more closer to the location of Bathhouse number 2, which has closed. We acknowledge the work done for Albany West and Albany South, and then we also mention Bleecker and Swinburne and the language from Councilmember Robinson from prior, looking to modernize into more multi-use complexes to really drive better recreation and community events within those locations. If no questions, then we go into our public education and government access section. Here we talk about the lump sum payment of $105,000 that was done in 2024, that with the approved use of purchasing and upgrading studio equipment. So with that, we are going to offset those funds and just move, because it's kind of in that franchise fee, we want to move that down so that's truly used for the purpose it was intended for, of upgrading and purchasing studio equipment. We also encourage PEG to come in the future if they have any particular budget requests or funding concerns within budget season, or prior, ideally. Questions on that? Okay. Albany Fire Department, this was drafted by Councilmember Inane. If you recall, he was looking for an additional communications position for the fire department, acknowledging maybe some improvement areas needed for communications for the fire department. Because we are in a situation where we're looking to cut the budget, we have agreed that we're not going to pursue an additional position for the fire department. We also collectively agreed that they should do that within the positions that they have. However, there is language here to ultimately focus on improving communications in the future and potentially looking at additional positions in the future. Any questions? Okay. So what is missing here, as we discussed, is related to police cars and the replacement of cars, and also the, I'm forgetting now, subrogation, but the money they get back from any crashes ultimately not going to the general fund, so that will be added. Is there anything that's not in here that anyone would like included, adjusted for this year's budget? Okay. Thanks. All right, if nothing else on this, is there a, well, we will amend this. We will add to this, so we will not be voting this out of committee tonight. We will vote it out on the floor.
Okay, because we could vote it out on committee, understanding that those pieces would be added.
Okay.
If you want to do that.
Are we
It might
comfortable with
just
doing
be
that? Good? Okay.
a percent.
Yeah, let's do that. So, is there a motion to pass Resolution 123, 11225R out of committee with the amendments discussed related to police cars? Councilmember Keegan.
I make a motion to move Resolution 132, 11225R out of committee as amended to reflect in the public safety section language regarding the movement of funding for police cars into the departmental budget, and also language to ensure that any insurance funds received by the city for replacement of police vehicles should be returned to the department for the replacement of those vehicles.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. So we have a motion from Councilmember Keegan, a second from Councilmember Farrell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution 132, 11225R moves out of committee pending amendment to add the police car movement of funding as well as the insurance funds. Okay. So now we're at Ordinance 27-10125. This is an ordinance adopting the City of Albany's budget for fiscal year 2026 as presented by the mayor on October 1st, 2025. As indicated, we do not have the adjustments from the administration. Also, as previously indicated, that is kind of common play, at least in recent prior years, that we do get it a little bit more closer to budget, so it's not uncommon to be in this position, unfortunately, although we would prefer, obviously, to have a fully fleshed out ordinance at this time. But it is of the committee's, I would say majority of committees, understanding that the administration should be proposing those changes, as opposed to us going through the budget and without full knowledge of the inner workings, cutting certain items without particularly allowing them the opportunity to really do what is best for the budget. So what we will have as part of this ordinance is a reduction to property tax revenue and therefore an offset to that of approximately $630,000, required to take us from 3% to 2%. We will also have some smaller items where it's not adding particular items, but we'll be moving, for example, 1,000 from training to a Commission on Disabilities line. Then we will have the one small addition to city clerk for $3,000 to furniture. So, any comments, questions? Is there anything? Just to reiterate, it's going to be 1,000 moving from training to the Commission on Disabilities. We're also going to be moving the franchise fees down to a particular item for PEG for $105,000 to make sure it goes towards that equipment. And then we're also increasing city clerk furniture by $3,000, and then ultimately whatever other offsets we have for the property tax decrease. Questions on those adjustments? Councilmember Hoey.
Yeah, just real fast. One of the things when we were talking about improving the city clerk, the desk and everything, we do have problems with some of the microphones for the council itself. I don't know if that has to be put in the budget, or can that, I think we upgraded the system years ago using the PEG money, but it's just a question I got.
Councilmember Keegan.
We did talk about, and this is really something that we as a body should remember to do in like June, July, because we submit our budget at the end of July. So we should always be thinking about furniture and fixtures that are needed for this room. But it typically would come out of furniture and fixtures, which we don't even have a line item for anymore. So like, one of the things I asked Shaniqua to budget out for us this year was chairs, because our chairs are, I don't even know how old our chairs are, but we're not getting them. So I think if we're to do the sound system, I don't know that that would work in 2026 unless we had additional funds, in which case if we have funds that are not spent down, we can always ask to E&A into that category for 2026, but it's certainly something that we can build into the budget for 2027.
Sure. And I know it's Councilmember Adams. He has to borrow a mic whenever he wants to talk, and it's just one that we know of. Maybe it's something that could be fixed. You know, it wouldn't be too much. Go ahead, Shaniqua.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. The problem with Councilmember Adams' line, we unplugged it because that's where all the static is coming from. That entire row needs to be rewired. So we're talking about a full rewire for the council chambers in order to make sure our equipment and the sound is where it needs to be. So we're looking at a heavy cost just to do that.
I believe we did talk about, though, moving like 1,500 from training. You all, and
that was for,
what am I missing?
the clerk's office.
That was the 1,500 was for furniture for the council, chairs specifically for the council staff.
Yeah,
Council staff.
for council staff.
I would say that, case in point, I would say it's something that, you know, depending on the cost of the rewiring, I do think that it's appropriate to bring out for E&A. If it's a huge cost, obviously not, but this is something, it's not just used for the council, although honestly, even if it was just for the council, it is very important that we are properly recorded. It's part of our open meetings law, it's part of transparency, so it would be something that, you know, mid-year, depending on the cost, I would be happy to, I think we could certainly advocate to have that paid for through E&A, should it come up. But we should definitely plan for it in the future, because it is something that, especially our sound system, and we did have a major upgrade from what it was, but it's still not great, as Keith often tells us. But you know, the more we can improve with that, the better, because it matters. I mean, people do actually watch us, and they should.
Okay, so back to the conversation though about, we did want 1,500 moved for furniture, so we're still in support of that for our staff chairs. Thank you. The other thing I completely unintentionally did not have included was the request for the chief city auditor. And that's something that I don't think we've actually had conversation on. So just to recap, the proposal from the chief city auditor-elect was wanting a new position. There was a request for a chief of staff. There was a request for another auditor. With that, he was looking to offset some of his contracted services fees to allow for a net new positions. So we haven't talked about that yet, and my sincere apologies to that. Councilmember Keegan.
I just think it's important to note that in developing the budget, he was given an opportunity to request staffing and did not do so at the time that the budget was created. The only staffing that he asked for was the part-time communications person that was granted to his department and baked into his budget. And again, I think if we are cutting revenue streams for the city, we shouldn't be looking to add funds to any department. So if he wants to hire another staff, another auditor, and have fewer funds to contract out for audit services, I think that is certainly within his prerogative. I think it's doable with still leaving the 89,000 or so that is needed for the required annual audit that has to be done. But I don't see how you get him a chief of staff. And my other concern with his request for chief of staff is that, you know, the deputy chief city auditor can do everything that a chief of staff can do. A chief of staff cannot do all of the things that the deputy chief city auditor can do. They are fundamentally different roles under civil service. So, you know, I think the only way that you get to a chief of staff is to eliminate the deputy chief city auditor, and I think that moves you away from the concept and the ability to be able to bring audits in-house.
I would agree. We cannot, with the budget that is listed for the audit of control, I don't see a path for him to get the additional chief of staff he was looking for. I also don't think he was favorable of replacing a deputy chief auditor with a chief of staff. I do see a path for us to have him get another auditor as requested. It does give me some concern about the professional audit line being sufficiently funded, but he himself has said he only needs 89,000 or whatever that figure was, so, yeah, 95. So, do we want to put those adjustments, pursue those adjustments? And obviously, we don't know the full cost of Social Security and health insurance, but the combination of the salary being at the lower end of the grade plus a estimate of 30% should be funded by the offset of professional audit. So, do we want to do that? Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the options I brought up at the last meeting was combining the new communications coordinator part-time position and the request of a chief of staff with some of the savings from professional auditing. It wouldn't get him the chief of staff at the salary of other chiefs of staff, but it would create an opportunity for him to still have that office staffed as he's looking to do so. So, I mean, that was one option. I think when I ran the numbers, it was roughly around $20,000 in the communication line, in that line.
Thank you. Councilmember Farrell.
I agree with Councilmember Keegan's assessment. Pretty much every point you brought up were things that I was exactly thinking about. Personally, I don't see how we get a chief of staff in any iteration because the communications coordinator, it's part-time, so it's half of that. I don't think it gets us anywhere close to a chief of staff salary. And my own preference would be, because he also is very comfortable with, he said whatever is fine, which I appreciate. I appreciate him coming in and articulating things and being willing to be flexible. But my personal preference would be to use that communications coordinator with part of the contracted services. It just makes me nervous to only have that, like the 95,000 for the professional audit, because you don't necessarily know what's coming. I think that having an additional auditor there so that you know that you can do more in-house audits, but I think it's really hard to, to take out all of everything except for that professional audit, I think puts his office in a very difficult position, because then there's no options to do any outside audits, and you don't, it's not just about, I think that doing more audits in-house is great, but there could be potentially things that it's not appropriate for them to do an audit on, and they might have to go outside the office, and then they wouldn't be able to because there would be no additional funds for it. And there's a lot of different things that could happen with. So that would be, there's just a lot of potential conflicts of interest within the city, or even within soon-to-be auditor Sam Fine or somebody. There's just a lot of potential conflicts of interest. We are a wonderful city, but we're a small one. So my personal preference would be to take the part-time communications coordinator, take some of the contracted services line, and give him an additional auditor. And it is good to know that he had the opportunity to weigh in on this earlier in the process, because I think that would have, if he really wanted the different positions, then that would have been his real option. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. And a couple things. So Councilmember Keegan graciously did a little bit of the projection math. So to get another auditor, it's with benefits included at approximate 30% benefit allocation, and we'd be looking at 73,000, approximately 74,000. And so that, we can put that number down to 100,000, and that would cover the cost of an auditor, lowest at the low range of the pay grade, and then also benefits. My one comment to Councilmember Farrell is, I think the explanation that Chief City Auditor-elect had in relation to the Chief of Staff was a lot of communications-based activities, and so I don't know that the elimination of the communications coordinator is going to put him where he wants to be, without the Chief of Staff position that we just cannot accommodate in this budget.
That definitely makes a lot of sense.
So what we could do again is move professional audit down to 100,000, and then with that add offsetting the funds, a auditor position with benefits. Comments? Councilmember Ballerin.
So I guess my question is, once we make this change, once he takes over, he rearranges his staff the way he wants to, he's not limited to this? Like, if you want, okay. I mean, well, how would he be able to then change his staff? Let's say he doesn't.
He could go through the E&A process. I mean, it is entirely possible it is potential to do that, but what would probably happen is, I mean, it's only a year. It's not like, it's not dictating it for the 4 years of his term. So it's something that he could go through this process and realize in the seat that maybe he doesn't need a chief of staff, maybe he needs a full-time communications person, or maybe he realizes that he needs another. I mean, I think that there will be staffing changes in every office with a new position in it after the first year regardless, because things change when you're actually in the position. And he will absolutely have the opportunity to do that.
And from my perspective, this at least gives Sam a portion of what he came and asked for in front of this committee, right? Although we can't fulfill the full request because we are restrained and we have other priorities to reduce in this budget, we at least accommodate one of his requests, and we also, he has said he's comfortable with line 7451, professional audit, going down to even lower than what we are proposing. And this will be his office to oversee. Councilmember Keegan.
I just also will note that he may find that there is value in hiring external auditors. I mean, there's a certain level of independence that comes with having a firm that is not part of the city actually conducting the audit, and a certain level of expertise that those firms may bring that you just won't get in-house. And so, I mean, that's sort of, again, it's his prerogative what he wants to do, but that's one of the concerns that I have with moving stuff around. I mean, there's a reason why we allow for the auditor to have an independent, to do contracted services, to have an independent audit of their choosing conducted every year.
So I guess we're back to the proposal on the table. Understanding the concerns that we may have, again, looking to honor some of the requests that were brought forward to us, reducing 7451 professional audit to 100,000, and therefore adding a second auditor position with benefits. Do we want to move forward with that as part of our amendments in this budget? Councilmember Ballerin.
Okay, just want to make sure I understand this. So we'll be adding an auditor position, so a W6 position, and we would keep the part-time communications coordinator. Is that correct?
Correct.
So then he's got some flexibility if he wants to make changes later on. Okay, thank you.
So are we supportive of that amendment? And again, my apologies for having this conversation now.
Yes.
Okay, we have a yes. Yes, yes. Okay, so that will be part of our amendments as well. Is there anything else that we did not discuss as part of council amendments for Monday's meeting? Acknowledging that we are currently pending the offset to property tax reduction. Anything else? Okay. So then procedurally, can we get a motion to pass out with the amendments discussed? And I'm happy to take a second and write those out for whoever's going to carry the motion. You can read that. There you go.
I make a motion to move ordinance 27-101-25 out of committee with the following amendments. We are making an adjustment within the council budget and moving $1,000 from our training and conference line item to create a new line item titled Commission on Disabilities. We are moving $3,000 from our training and conference, right? Training and conference line item? No. 1,500 from our training and conference line item to create a new line item, furniture and fixtures, for the purposes of replacing our staff's chairs. We are making an adjustment of the revenue for, what's it called? The revenue stream for PEG. The franchise fees, I'm sorry. I was like FFF. I couldn't remember. Franchise fees, and moving that as a revenue stream for PEG, specifically for equipment. We are adjusting the property tax levy to 2%. And we are making adjustments to the Chief City Auditor's office, moving from contracted services to create an additional auditor position. And finally, we're making an adjustment to the Office of the Clerk for an additional $3,000 for furniture and fixtures. Did I miss anything?
Thank you. We have a motion. Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Keegan. Is there a second? We have a second from Councilmember Farrell. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Ordinance 27-101-25 moves out of committee pending amendments. Okay. That concludes our budget thus far. Now, we'll say you might get a phone call or something from me in between now and Monday, as we await information from the administration. However, as soon as we get those offsets, we will share with the body. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to also reach out. But the plan is to pass the budget, or vote on the budget, better said, Monday evening. And again, we are holding on all bonds until we have a larger discussion on debt. Councilmember Farrell.
As this is our last official budget meeting, finance meeting of budget, I know that we will have more finance meetings because we love having so much fun together. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to you, Chair Frederick, for your years of service and excellent oversight of the budget and all of our financial obligations for the city. We've been incredibly lucky to have you in this role, and it has been an absolute honor to serve with you. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you, Councilmember Farrell. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'd also just like to say thank you for putting up with us, because it gets a little spicy up here.
I get a little spicy too sometimes, but I try to keep my composure.
I want to thank you for going in the back room and doing the hard work to try to get us a lot of our spicy requests. So thank you.
Looking forward to see who takes it next, and wishing you, if you continue in finance, the most success, and obviously all of you on the council as well. Anything else before we conclude? Okay. Motion to adjourn from Councilmember Farrell, second from Councilmember Keegan. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and a huge thank you to all the staff. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Thank you very much, staff. Now motion to adjourn. Done.